today we are joined by Matt Taylor, who is an Army Reserve officer. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Beck.
So what was your inspiration for joining the Army in a part-time capacity? When did you become an Army Reservist?
Yeah, so I joined the Army Reserve in, I think, May of 2015. And for me, it was largely a continuation of kind of the stuff I'd learned at school. I was heavily involved in leadership type roles, and I also had a pretty keen interest in service. So for me, it was kind of a natural progression to go into the Army Reserve. I gave it a year or so after school. And for me as well, the part-time capacity, because I wanted to stay close to home. I wanted to study at the university of my choice. So it made sense to do the Army Reserve.
Yeah, amazing. So can you share with us a cool experience that you've had so far working as an Army Reservist?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the one that stands out, I'd say, to me straight away is that trip I took to the UK and to France for a little bit over about a month and a half. At the start of 2019, I just commissioned to become a lieutenant, and I was lucky enough, because of my performance, to be awarded a scholarship and go on a reserve foreign force exchange over the UK. So my unit at the time got to go over to a British Army unit, see how they did things, and tour around the country. Got to go to places such as Edinburgh, Scotland. I had a really interesting time and a wonderful time meeting not only partner forces, but seeing how they train and do business, very similar to us. So I'm very privileged to have had that opportunity. It's probably one of those standout memories so far in my career today.
Amazing. That would have been so fun.
Oh, it was. I really, of standout was Edinburgh and the rifles. I think it was 3 rifles of the British Army up there. They had the best of both worlds. A lovely place, great job, and yeah, a great bunch of people.
How cool. Very, very lucky. Here's hoping those borders can open up soon and we can all be traveling again. It sounds lovely.
Yeah, not wrong.
Yeah. So how does the Army Reserve fit in with your lifestyle, just on a general basis?
Reasonably quite well. So for myself, I've been both full-time work and now more recently part-time work and also studying part-time. So I've kind of had those 3 commitments in addition to family and friends. So for me, it's been very flexible to go from full-time work to then back to part-time work and start studying again. So we're talking more or less evenings after work or study, and then of course the weekends when I don't necessarily have work on, but I can blend my study around the work for Army Reserve. It just takes a bit of time management.
Yeah. Wow, you're busy.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are.
Yeah. So what sort of time commitment are we talking with the Army Reserve? Like, what does it require?
For me personally, in my role as a junior officer, as a lieutenant, I look at usually 2 nights during the week. Our main parade night being when we go for work is either a Tuesday or a Wednesday. And I'll usually do maybe the day or 2 before that just to prepare myself and some of my administration and training for that night. And then it depends on the training program. We might be doing a weekend once a month. We might be doing a full week exercise for that month or the next 2 months. And then outside of COVID, when permits allow, we do go on longer exercises, which usually look at maybe a couple of weeks per year. And I might also go on a course for myself, my own development, which might be that 2 to 3 week range. So that's kind of what the week to week looks like. And then the larger scheme every year.
Wow, cool. That sounds awesome. Now, is it what you thought it would be? Looking back, did you have any misconceptions or preconceptions about it all?
To be honest, I probably thought as an officer, I might be doing more of the run down, crawl kind of stuff, which I certainly did during my initial training. But then what really surprised me was more that kind of professional leadership development, small teams into larger teams, that kind of stuff. I really didn't necessarily think of going in, probably just thinking about myself, developing myself, but then also, taking charge of small teams into larger teams, that 8 group of people into that group of 24 and that kind of stuff really probably didn't, when I thought about leadership, didn't necessarily strike me as that's what I'd end up being in charge of. And now it's my day-to-day job, is being in charge of people in that kind of 24 or 20 people size group. So I probably didn't think about that from the junior officer type, the teams I'd actually be fully responsible for, but it's something now I probably get the most enjoyment out of my job.
Yeah, cool. So how do you think you've grown from this experience? Obviously, you've been able to grow in terms of your life skills and management skills. How would you say you've grown?
Yeah, no, I'd say I'm certainly a bit more resilient. That comes with any type of, I think, adventure or military style training. You pick up a lot of good qualities. for myself as well, I've always considered myself a mature person, but there's that next step when you're responsible for the welfare, the training and the administration of a group of people. So you naturally mature because you're taking on those responsibilities, you're providing direction to people. And I think my leadership, which I thought was fine to begin with, certainly has become stronger, more developed. So they're probably the things that come to mind. Also, the physical fitness has always been a component now. So when you're at school and maybe in the early years after school, you're always still active, but now I'm 5, 6, getting to 10 years down the track, you still have that active lifestyle thanks to the Army Reserve. So there's that extra bonus as well.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Now, emergency assistance is a big part of what you do. Have you had a chance to give back to the community?
I have, in a small way. Often as officers, we're often behind desks at times, performing staff officer style work, administration, operations management. But that doesn't mean we don't necessarily get out on the ground. So for me, that looked like Operation COVID Assist through last year, being 2020. And I was a watchkeeper in a logistics unit, making sure that for Victoria, the logistics units on my shift still had response and still had the support they could give to all the other task units, which are likely out there supporting checkpoints, supporting hotels, supporting airports. So in terms of community give back, that's certainly one that comes to mind straight away. You also do community engagement activities at local fairs, schools, award presentations. So those small little things that expose the regular person on the street to Army is also one of those really rewarding experiences that I look back on fondly.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's always cool when you see the Army walking down the street, and obviously with the COVID response as well, you know, we saw a lot of the Army out and about. So it was nice to see, that's for sure. So what has your military training involved so far? What have you gotten to do for that side of things?
Yeah, so for the military training side of house, it's largely been initially 5 training blocks to do my general service officer training. The first one of which is at Kapuka, the home of the Australian soldier, where we pick up our basic soldier skills and craftsmanship there. And after that, we go on to do the series of training blocks 2 through to 5. 2 and 3 for me were 2 weeks in length, and then 4 and 5 were 3 weeks. And that kind of progresses you through being the second command of an 8-person team. And then you eventually become commander of that on the next training block. And then you build up your skills to assist the command, leadership and management of that 24 style person organisation. And then you end up being ticked off and certified to be able to lead and command that 24 person organisation. Now, me as an engineering, an electrical and mechanical engineering officer, I also go on to do logistics training, which for me, I was lucky enough to get on the full-time course. And I did about 2 months of training, my logistics officer basic course up at Bandiana, which is near Albury-Wodonga.
Okay. So what sort of logistics training, like what's involved with that sort of thing?
It's largely about applying the skills we learned in the General Service Officer initial training or the Reserve Officer commissioning course, and applying those skills and building upon them. So in logistics, that might talk about lines of supply, how we establish a logistics organisation in a field environment, and while we might have been taught security and principles of defence of an infantry-style fighting environment, we apply that then to the logistics environment and how we defend that organisation. We talk about our classes of supply and how we'd actually run our distribution points, our exchange points, and conduct logistics, both in barracks and in the field.
Wow, sounds really cool. Sounds really interesting. Now, we touched on it a little bit earlier, but how do you believe the Army Reserve has helped you in your professional career?
For me, it probably taught me those things not really taught in necessarily tertiary education, those experience kind of driven lessons. So being given a full team of people with a whole diverse background of both professionally and also socially, where they've come from. They are everything from school teachers, mechanics, electricians, through to high-level academics and nurses. You get a whole variety of people who sometimes just want to do something different, and then you're in charge of that small group. So instantly you learn different ways to approach problems. So in terms of that, I take those skills that I learn in the Army Reserve and apply them more so to my other profession, as well as the academic lessons I pick up through my studies. So the way to interact with people, the way to manage and prioritise tasks, they all come to mind when I think about stuff I've taken from Army Reserve and now I apply in other aspects of my life.
Yeah, it sounds like such a rewarding thing to do from so many different levels. So we appreciate your time today, Matt. If students are listening and they'd like to find out more information, where should they head?
Well, the classic throwaway is Defence Jobs. I think it's defencejobs.gov.au. They've also got Defence Jobs on Facebook, Twitter, all those kind of social medias these days. But that's the first place I'd recommend going. They can certainly put you in contact with career advisors and other people who are currently in defence. They can kind of give you that extra information. But do yourself a favour, research the website, figure out if it's for you, and then go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you once again for joining us, and good luck with the rest of your time as an Army reservist.
Thanks, Beck. Appreciate it.